Transcripts and recordings of the podcast may not be used for any purpose without the direct written permission of the podcast owner. Welcome to LITE It Up, a podcast about resilient women balancing motherhood, their careers, personal lives, and all of the challenges that come along with being a superwoman. Each week, you'll be motivated to take action to lead, inspire, transform, and empower. Now, here's your host, Dr. Aginah Musherah. Hey, everybody. Welcome to a new episode of LITE It Up podcast. I am your host, Dr. Aginah Musherah. Today, I have a very special guest. If you're a Chicagoland viewer and listener, then you know that we are in the heart of election season. And today's guest is Dr. Barbara Bunville, who is running for Alderwoman of the 6th Ward here in Chicago. Welcome to LITE It Up, Doctor. How are you?
I am good. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining me today. I wanted to use this opportunity to give you a chance to share your background, talk about your interest in running for the 6th Ward here in Chicago, and then also kind of talk about your platform so that we can make sure that voters are informed as they go to the polling place later in February. So before we kind of jump into the questions about your run for Alderwoman, I want to take some time to kind of talk about who you are as a person, because we do share some commonalities. You grew up, like me, in the Inglewood community. So if you could just tell us just a little bit about your background as a Chicago native and growing up in the Inglewood community. And of course, the other commonality that we share is that we both have degrees in the field of education. So I know you're very passionate, like I am, about education. So why don't you just take a few moments to introduce yourself to the viewing and listening audience?
Yes, well, yes, I did grow up in Inglewood. I actually was raised by my great-grandmother, and Lady Lipscomb, that was her name, from Sugar Lock, Mississippi.
Mm-hmm.
The reason why I ended up with her raising me is because my mom wanted to give my brother and I at that point up to the foster care, but my grandmother took us in.
Okay.
And she raised us. So everything, what I believe, how I feel, it was due to her, Lady Lipscomb. She planted a seed in me.
Okay. And you completed your undergraduate degree at Roosevelt University with a background, a degree in education, correct?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And so have you ever taught in the school system with CPS or?
Actually, I did. My first teaching job was at Jones Academic Magnet High School. So I taught computers there. I was the computer teacher. And then from there, I did teach at a charter school.
Okay.
So I've taught in both.
Okay. So, and that's what I was mentioning about our commonalities with working in the field of education, which gives you just a broad, I think, perspective of the community, because you are obviously working with the youth, but then of course have to interact with parents and those who are within the community and confines of the school in which you're working in. So as we go into your desire to launch your campaign and run for Alderwoman of the 6th Ward, what was it about this this opportunity? Because it's an open seat.
Yes,
there are numerous candidates who are running for the 6th Ward aldermanic seat. What's the reason why you decided to take that jump and run for Alderwoman?
Well, I decided to run for Alderwoman of the 6th Ward because of my heart for service. and my desire to give back to my community. I believe that I have the education, the experience, the public service, and the compassion to lead the Sixth Ward to the next level.
Okay. And then as far as the boundaries are concerned, because with Chicago politics, there's been a remapping of the wards. For those who may not know what those boundaries are, maybe they're unsure as to whether or not they're in the Sixth Ward. Can you just share with us what the boundaries for the Sixth Ward are?
Yes, they go from 95th to 64th, from Halsted to Cottage Grove.
Okay. That's a pretty broad area.
Yes.
And then, of course, there are at least, just from what I can recall, at least 14 or so elementary schools and a couple of high schools, large high schools. I know Inglewood STEM is within those boundaries, as well as I think you informed me of Simeon High School on Vincennes and on those boundaries. So what's your goal, your platform, in terms of what are the areas in which you believe that you can improve the current state of the Sixth Ward?
Well, my platform for the Sixth Ward consists of economic development, bringing more businesses, addressing the housing vacancies, improving the streets, and cleaning up our ward.
Okay.
And then also crime reduction. I will work with the community, the clergy, and the police to reduce crime for the ward. I will advocate for community programs for the youth, adults, and seniors. I will improve literacy because we need a literacy program. I didn't tell you, I do have a master's degree in literacy from Roosevelt University.
Okay, that's right.
For our ward and our children. And then lastly, mental health. I would advocate for mental health improvement programs for the ward because that is so important right now.
It certainly is. And you know what, let's actually start there. In terms of mental health and the crises that currently exist. Within that ward, the Sixth Ward, are there any mental health resources that are readily available? I know that there's been significant cutback in terms of mental health resources that are available here within the city and the state of Illinois. What type of resources are available, if any?
Now, I do know that ADS McKinley, I do work for them, and I work in the behavioral part of ADS McKinley, and they have counselors that go out because I am a crisis worker. So if a call comes in, we do go out because Chatham is part of the area for ADS McKinley. So I know they have that. Okay. Also, they go into some of the schools. Not all of them, but some of them. So they do collaborate with CPS. Okay. So that I do know.
Okay. And then, so as an alderperson, what exactly is your role in terms of making sure, how do you make sure that your ward can gain some of those resources or additional resources as far as mental health is concerned? Do you have to collaborate with other neighboring alderpersons, or do you have to seek out additional funding or make sure that funds are allocated to the board? How does that work exactly?
Well, you can reach out to other alderpersons in the ward, but you can also reach out to clergy because usually it's just space. We need a place for them to come. You can have group therapy. I've done group therapy because a lot of the clergy have churches, and we can use the space in their church to have meetings for family therapy, individual therapy. If we can take some of these abandoned buildings and change some of that into a place they can come to and be, safe, and they can just come there. They are some places you don't have to, because they have telehealth. Sometimes you have telehealth, and you can do that from the home. If you don't feel comfortable, you go somewhere else. But yes, you can do it right there. It's not, reinventing the wheel, just making the wheel better.
Right. Okay. So the collaborative effort between government, really, essentially, and those who are in positions of working with the community, the faith-based community, and other community resources, about pulling those resources together to help the residents, seems to be what the focal point would be.
Yes.
Okay. And then as far as, because I'm not really familiar in terms of the ward and the number of abandoned buildings, is that a result of the remapping of the ward, or has the 6th ward had, an influx of abandoned property?
No, I don't think it's an influx.
Okay.
It depends on which part of the world you're looking at.
Okay.
But I don't think it's an influx, because over here on the Chatham side, it's hard to find a house. I mean, they have a lot of rental property now, but to actually have a house and own a house. But if you go on the Inglewood side, yes.
And so the communities within the 6th ward are Chatham and Inglewood. Are there any other?
Park Manor.
And
West Chesterfield. So yes.
Okay. All right. So in terms of home ownership, single family home ownership, certain parts of the ward, one wouldn't be able to find a house because there's been probably that longevity of home ownership there. But in areas such as perhaps Inglewood is where you would find more of the rental.
No, there's rental also. There's rental property in Chatham, because it's a lot of buildings in certain areas. So no, there's some buildings now.
Okay. And I guess what I'm trying to understand, because you mentioned about some of the abandoned properties, is that concentrated in a particular area, and what exactly can you do to reduce the number of abandoned properties that are within the ward?
Oh, you can reduce. I will have workshops, because people do want to own their own home, but sometimes people don't know how to do it or how to go about doing it. You have people that have bad credit. Okay, let's teach them how to get good credit. Or they don't know how to fill out, go to the bank, what they need. They don't know the ins and outs of actually owning a home. So if you have these programs where they show you, okay, this is what you do, and take them by the hand a little bit. I mean, not all the way, but show them in the right direction to help them. They also have incentives for down payment. People don't know about that. Right. So it's more about knowing and the knowledge more than anything.
Okay. And then as far as the working with the community and the police to help to reduce crime, that, of course, crime is something that every resident is concerned about. What type of relationship do you already have with the Chicago Police Department, and how will you be able to use or leverage the working relationship that you have to help reduce the crime within the community?
Well, the relationship I have with the Chicago Police Department is the fact that I am a police officer and have been one for the last 23 years. So when I started, as a rookie, as they say, I actually started in the 6th ward. Okay. So I was a beat officer. So I got to know the residents. I got to know the problem buildings. So I was out there walking the streets. So I knew the residents. So this is full circle now, since I live in this part of Chatham, where I lived over in Inglewood also. Now I'm on this side of it. It's easy because I know it. I know over there in Inglewood, and I know over here.
Okay.
So it's not new to me. And then I would get to know who the commanders are. I might know them already. I don't know, because right now we don't have a commander in the 6th district right now.
Okay.
So I have to work with the commanders and work with the community policing officers to get things done. Right now, I work in the Area Technology Center on 51st in Detective Division. And I work with the detective to help them solve like homicides, but I do more of the camera work. So when your Ring cameras or your house cameras, we actually come out and try to get information. But a lot of people do not want to do that because they're afraid of retaliation. But we got that solved too. Because now they have, if you have a Ring camera, we can if you give us access to your Ring camera for the time being, we can go in back door and pull the video footage. So people won't even know that you gave information to us.
But the resident, of course, has to.
Yeah, of course, yes.
Right.
So,
Okay.
yeah. But I mean, other people that if you feel afraid, no, they
Right.
wouldn't know.
Right. No. Okay. And I only asked that question because as one having a Ring camera myself, just curious to know that. Are there any other, so considering the fact that you in your career, you are a Chicago police officer, you've 23 years, I think you said. What do you think can be done to help to improve the relationship between and the perception of the Chicago Police Department with the community, in particular in your ward? How can you bridge that gap between the Chicago Police Department and your community members?
The only way you bridge a gap, everybody has to come to the table and have a conversation. It might not be a conversation you might not want to have, because it's like your family. Sometimes you don't want to have a family discussion. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. You have to. Everybody has to start. It's about transparency. I don't like to use that word so much because the word is thrown around so much. But you have to come together as a unit and not fight one another. I understand people think, the police get a bad name. Everybody is not bad. If you look at any profession, you have some bad people in these professions. So you can't just clump all the police officers as bad. Then you got to do the teachers and the doctors. Then you got to do, you have to do all of that also. So we need to come together and have a conversation and do things together, like not just side by side. If we're doing we're going to say basketball tournament. Okay, let the clergy come there. The police is there. Community, everybody is joining in. We could do one big, basketball tournament with everybody. Everybody is included. They don't have to be separate.
So with bringing everyone to the table, bringing them all together, as the alderwoman of the 6th ward, that would be something that you are willing to take the lead on to do that in order to at least bring some level of improvement, safety, and reduction of crime into the ward.
Yes.
Now, as far as the youth is concerned or are concerned, what type of community programs are currently in the ward, and what type of improvements are needed? Because I think we all, as we are I'm saying slowly coming out of the pandemic, after school programming, things of that nature, they may or may not be few far in between, but what type of resources would you help to bring, or additional resources would you help to bring into the 6th ward for the youth?
Now, I know that because of the pandemic, a lot of stuff shut down, like the parks and things like that. So I know now they're just now probably coming back, because you had the park kids, as I call them. So you don't know if the parents bringing them back to that like that. But I know the parks are open, but I don't know to what capacity. And that's fine. Now, what I would bring, since CPS have taken so many of the extracurricular activities out of the school, we need something for these children to do. They are like a ball of energy. They need to express, get the extra energy out of them. And then everybody is not athletically inclined. You have people that can sing, do drama, play an instrument. We're missing those people, like to draw, and we're missing all of that. If we can get some type of boys and girls club over here, because they do have one on the west side, we need activities like that for our students. We need tutoring. We need a literacy program, because CPS has taken out the libraries in the schools.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, they don't have a librarian. So what's the use of going in there?
Well, that's very disappointing to hear, because literacy is extremely important. If you aren't literate, then your ability to function in the society is severely hampered.
Yes, it is. So to create a literacy program, because I have been a part of a literacy program in the South suburbs, we need it here too. And again, we can have a camp, summer camp with literacy. We can use one of the churches, anything. We have everything here that's self-sufficient. Why can't we use this stuff?
Well, I think also, and I'll just speak from when you think about working parents and resources that are available, there's always this gap, it seems, from how do you get the students from point A to point B? So if the programs can't be run in the school building where, your child is going to be safe and doesn't have to worry about trying to get to another site or facility, is there any way to leverage like corporate funding? I don't know. So I don't know in terms of the structure, as far as the budget that you would receive as alderwoman. What type of budget are you allotted in terms of pouring into resources for the community, especially resources for the youth? Because, we hear so much about the youth don't have anything to do, but it also takes funding to make sure these programs are operable. So go ahead.
I'm sorry. Well, with that there is TIF money that's there. So I would actually have to look at the budget. So, is money there, but also going to have to look at the budget, or we can get sponsors. I mean, you can have sponsors to do this. I'm a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. If I need to reach out to them, because they have different programs, if they need to adopt a literacy program for the summer or donate books, this is resources that we can tap into, because they're not-for-profit. I was like, okay, we need some help.
Right.
So I don't know what the budget, I will have to actually see the budget. So that's a hard question to say, well, I would give 5,000 to this.
Well, no, I'm not so much as asking about the dollar amount in terms of being able to allocate. My point is, do you know if there are budget line items where, as an alderperson, you would be able to use the operating budget for your ward to allocate funding to these types of programs? Just like there's a line item for, street repair and things of that nature. I'm just wondering whether, each alderperson has that ability or that line item in their budget, or do they have to go to the city council to request for funding to be allocated for any type of special programming?
Well, I know that you do get money for the ward. And we have to look, I will have to look at everything, because there's probably a line item there, but then you have to look at infrastructure, you have to take everything else as a whole, because there's no lighting. We need more lights. So how much does that cost? Where do I pull this money from? Because it's not a lot of money. I mean, they give you a number, but it's not a lot when you think of a whole ward and so many people.
Mm-hmm.
But if it was up to me, yes, that would be a line item.
Now, do you know how many residents are there in the 6th ward? About an estimate?
I know there's about 50,000, I'm thinking, because I'm thinking about the voting. I think it's about 40,000 that actually that's registered to vote. I'm sorry, I gotta say who's registered to vote.
Because that makes a difference too.
Yes.
Okay. And for someone who doesn't have, I guess, a relationship with their alderperson, right? What can if I were in your ward, what exactly is your job, is your role, and how would I, as a resident of the 6th ward, connect with you to get things done? What can I come to you to request? Do I come to you to express concern about what's going on in the community, and you look into providing resources on a resident's behalf? What exactly is the role of the alderperson within their community and then within the city council?
Well, the role of an alderperson in the ward is we're here for the constituents, the people in the ward. So my job would be to make sure communication flows back and forth. My job is to bring information that other people from city council to you all. My job is if you've called 311 and have not gotten something done, you call the office and then we can get on it. My job is to work with Streets and Sand to get up the garbage. My job is to work with IDOT to get up the garbage on the expressway. There is a relationship with all the departments in the city, because you probably can't do it, but as an alderperson, I'm like, look, I need this done over here. I need this done over here. My citizens need this in my ward. So basically, I'm the one-stop shop between all the rest of the city departments and my ward. Now, city council is something different, because that's where you vote on policy and change and getting things passed or taken away. So, because I'm working with the mayor. So that is where that goes. But again, I will still have to, me personally, will still bring that information to my ward, because they need to know what's going on. What am I voting yes to? What I'm voting no to? I'm not saying everybody's going to like it, but at least they are informed of what's going on.
Okay. And you've been a resident of the 6th ward for how long?
Well, I grew up in Inglewood, so I was a resident on that side.
That wasn't, when you grew up in Inglewood, that was not the 6th ward. But
no, it was a sequel. It was a 6th ward.
Well, I don't know how old you are, but I know where I grew up. That part of Inglewood where I grew up, I'll just say that I was in the 15th ward and then the 18th ward.
Yes, because we go all the way to Halstead. See, I grew up on the other side.
Okay. Gotcha. Well, I grew up on the side of Damon.
Okay, yes, there's not the 6th ward.
Okay, right. Okay. So you've been a lifelong resident then.
Right.
Okay. All right, perfect. See, here we go, these Chicago folks with all these dividing lines and everything.
Right.
So as your campaign has been progressing, your ability to get out to the community, make yourself known, and stand on your platform, have you talked about with your future constituents what your plans are in terms of making sure that you are regularly communicating with the residents? So for example, will you hold monthly meetings or webinars so that they are kept abreast of what's going on and what's happening within the ward, or how various policies will affect the ward?
Oh, yes. That is one of the things that is close to my heart, is communication. You have to communicate, be it forms, newsletters, Zoom meetings, any type of way. Now, because because the pandemic, Zoom is like the next thing.
Yes.
So yes, that is important to me. I have talked to many constituents, and that was the biggest thing. They don't know what's going on. No one is communicating with them.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel you have to communicate. People need to know what's going on. That's why they voted for you or put you in this office, because they don't know.
And it also, the communication will also give them an opportunity to get involved, because as we all know, though your role is to represent your constituents, but you can't do the work alone and work in a silo. So when the lines of communication are open, and it gives residents an opportunity to get involved in various ways. What type of support have you gotten so far in terms of the various clergy that are within the ward? Are they on board for what you see as your vision for establishing various programs and getting them involved in terms of making sure that there are opportunities available for the youth and the broader community within the sixth ward?
I have spoken to some of the clergy, and they like my ideas, but everybody, some people stay neutral, so I can't stay neutral, or they hear me out.
Okay. All right. What would you say what would be your first order of business once you're elected as alderwoman of the sixth ward?
My first order of business is to take a survey, if you want to say, of what is needed. I mean, from the top to the bottom, because some of the stuff that's at the top is going to filter out anyway. It's going to take care of the stuff at the bottom. And look at the budget. That's the most important. That's another thing. You have to look at the budget and see what I can do to fix this or fix that. Those would be the first thing. And also I would get together a committee with the residents, the clergy, the police, and see, because I'm coming in from somebody else, like, okay, what worked, what didn't work? Because we need to know what's going on. Because I'm just coming in, like, okay, now what do I do next?
Right.
Get everybody on board.
And in the sixth ward, in terms of the demographics, and this is really, I'm thinking of age. I know in the Chatham community, at least from what I recall, there may be quite a few seniors, right?
There's some buildings.
Yeah. So overall, though, within the sixth ward, is your ward populated by majority seniors or middle age, or?
It's a mix now. It
is
mixed, because the seniors probably passed away and their children have the house now, and then you have people moving in, buying, that's younger, that's buying. So it's multi-generational at this point.
Okay.
So it's changing.
And I think you mentioned there are quite a few multi-family residences in terms of building.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So you do have a pretty substantial number of people who reside in the 6th Ward, because as you think about it, if there are tons of buildings, apartment buildings, and you have multiple families, right? Okay. In terms of your campaign, and I know it's a huge race in terms of the number of candidates,
Yes.
as far as that's concerned, but we're not going to talk about the other candidates today. I want you to tell the audience what makes you uniquely qualified, and how have you set yourself apart from the other candidates that make you the best choice as the alderwoman for the 6th Ward?
For one, I am qualified. I have the experience, the compassion, because that's what you need. You need a lot of compassion. I have the patience. I'm humble. I have the gift of listening, because listening is a skill. That is a skill. And I think I got that one down pat. And I have the plan. Because right now it's time to move forward in the ward. It's time for a new change. It's time for fresh ideas. Because the people in the 6th Ward, they're very proud people, which is great. That's one thing I do love. They take pride in this community, in which I love. But now it's time to just take it a step further to the next level, to be that destination Mecca that it needs to be. Mm-hmm. So also, I'm used to working from the back, but see, the people in the back are the ones that knows what's really going on, because they doing all the work.
Right. You're right.
They doing the work in the back. So if I can work from the back, it's time for me to go to the front, because I know what the back look like. Mm-hmm. I know what's needed. I know how to organize. I know how to lead. I've been in many different leading positions. So I know how to do all of that.
Okay. And there was something that just came to my mind in terms of the economic infrastructure within the ward, as far as businesses are concerned. Is there a need for more businesses within the community? So, for example, what I don't know, and you can educate me on this, are there grocery stores, within the 6th Ward that are readily accessible, for residents? And what about restaurants? You know what I mean?
Yes, I do know what you mean. Now, yeah, we do need some more grocery stores. We need sit-down restaurants. Some more sit-down restaurants. There are some, but right. More sit-down restaurants. We need more mom and pop stores. I mean, mom and pop, like maybe we have a stationery store or a craft store. We need things like that. We need a Kinko's.
Those are hard to come by.
Right, I know, right? Maybe like a coffee shop, a coffee house. Mm-hmm. We need things that we can actually walk down the street and say, "Oh, let's go in here. This looks fun. This looks nice."
Mm-hmm. How would what role would you have in terms of drawing more business owners into your ward to establish their business there? Because definitely, like the coffee shop, coffee houses, definitely, I mean, that's how we're operating anyway. Many of us are working virtually anyway and want someplace to go to get outside of the house. But how do you draw various businesses? What would be your plan for that?
Now, drawing businesses, you have people that live in the ward that want to own a business, but they don't know how to go about it. Mm-hmm. So it would be my job to bring like workshops in, because the city is giving away money for new businesses, but they don't know how to go about it. or where to go. So again, as an alderman, my job is to connect people with these resources. And then again, we can also connect some of the business owners, and maybe you could be a mentor to that person, especially if they're new. So they won't feel like a fish out of water.
I really like your ideas in terms of bringing information into the community, because you're right, there are tons of resources available, but if people don't know how to access them, then they're going to remain stuck in the same place. And when you think about Black women-owned businesses and the different grants or funding opportunities that may be available, knowing how to tap into those resources will be key. Within your office, because I've already placed you as
Thank you.
Alderwoman. What's the structure for your office? Like, who helps you run the day-to-day? Because obviously you can't be accessible
all the time,
all day, all the time. So is there do you inherit a staff? Do you select your staff? And then what does that look like in terms of, what type of support do you have as alderwoman with running, the ward?
Well, whenever there's a transition, you try to keep some of the people there because they know what's going on. But you could bring your own people in and they can teach them. Some people don't. Some people just be like, see you later, bye. That's the risk you run. But you also try to bring in people that are, qualified in those areas, that can do, human resource person, or it's like a job, basically. Right. You try to get the best of the best.
I just recall my days of being a Chicago resident. When I was a homeowner, I was in the 18th ward. Okay. And during that time, I'm dating myself, but Thomas Murphy was my alderman. So that was well over 20 years ago. But I sort of stayed in the alderman's office, but, I just had a different type of experience because as a resident, I strongly believe my tax dollars, I'm going to go and talk to that person who's the, in between, to find out what's going on in the ward and to be involved in the way that, works for me. And in the suburbs is not entirely different, but, we have our trustees, so very similar. But I still have a habit. I go directly. So I deal with my mayor.
Okay, we're going to skip everybody. Just go.
But that's just me. I kind of get it, honestly, from my late father. So we don't.
You just go to the head.
Right. We don't have time to deal with the middleman. So, but I was just curious to know how the structure is, so that residents will know what to expect, to know that there will be, you'll have a team of people who, of course, will be supporting you in your efforts, but that they'll be able to share their concerns and get questions answered from those who are working closely with you.
Also, I think at least twice a week, I will be in the office. I mean, so you could see me. Mm-hmm. I mean, if something comes up, that's totally different, but I will make sure, like, okay, on Tuesdays, I can't go unless, it's, city council meeting, then I have to go, then I move to another day. But these are things that I will have to put in place.
Right. Okay. And that's good to know too, because oftentimes people just want to be able to see that person that's in charge and be able to, in different ways, connect. Now, we know that campaigns can't run on their own. Do you have any events coming up or ways in which people can support your campaign? And remind us also What is election day is what, February
February 28th.
28th. Okay.
Election day. Yes.
Will there be early voting?
Yes. There'll
Yes.
be early voting.
Okay.
I think it opens up downtown. I think sometime this week, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
This week. But then after that, then I think it's 2 weeks of
Mhm.
early voting, and then the 28th.
Okay. So it's starting to kind of ramp up in terms of getting across that finish line. Do you have, are there ways in which people can support you? Do you still need support for your campaign? What exactly are you looking for? How can people help you be successful in your journey of becoming the Alderwoman for 6th Ward?
Yes, we are. My team is always looking for help. Volunteers, donations, anything. We had actually, before I saw you today, I just had a fundraiser.
Okay.
It was a meet and greet with some of the residents, and it was a nice fundraiser. It was really nice. It was really, really nice. We plan on having another one. It's like a meet and greet to showcase one of the new businesses actually that came to the 6th Ward. So
Okay, awesome. Okay, good.
So that's coming up. But if you want to know more about me, I have a website, www.friends with an S for the number 4, BarbaraBunville.org, O-R-G.
Okay.
And if you want to call, it is 312-203-7668.
Okay, that's 312-203-7668. And friends for BarbaraBunville.org.
Yes, the number 4.
Number 4. Got it. Okay. All right. Do you have, before we kind of wind down and wrap up, you have any closing remarks that you'd like to share with the viewing and listening audience?
Sure. On February 28th, I humbly ask for your vote to vote for me as your next Alderperson. Punch 54.
Glad you got that out there. Yes, we see Punch 54.
Yes.
But of course, yes, we want.
If you want more, punch 54.
Right. Well, I am very excited about your campaign. Wish you much, much success. I am sure that you are going to do very well as the Alderwoman of the 6th Ward. It's very exciting times. And once you have secured that victory, then you can always have platform to come back and tell us about all of the great things that you're doing in the ward and how other people can get involved, because I believe that it's not just that community. People from other communities can come in and help support and work together as well and build together. So thank you for making the choice to be a servant of the people within your community.
Thank you so much for having me. And I look forward to coming back to talk to you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So thank you everyone for tuning in to this special edition of Light It Up. Make sure that you share this episode with others so that they can be informed about Dr. Barbara Bunville's campaign as she works diligently to become the next Alderwoman for the 6th Ward in the city of Chicago. So thank you so much for tuning in, and remember to come back here next week for another special episode and a very interesting guest. Until next time, remember to continue to light it up and shine bright like a diamond. Thanks for joining me this week on Light It Up. Make sure you visit my website at www.lightituppodcast.com or www.aginahmuhammad.com.
You can also find me on social media using the handle @LITE IT UP Podcast. If you like what you've heard, please be sure to hit the subscribe button so you'll never miss a show. While you're at it, I'd appreciate a rating on iTunes, or you can simply tell a friend about the show. Be sure to tune in every Tuesday for a new episode. Until next time, light it up and shine bright like a diamond.